Thank you for giving us the time today.
Thanks for having me.
We're a couple of days after the third anniversary of Flight PS752. You were there with Mr. Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, which is your party as well. He had a speech about designating IRGC as a terrorist entity in Canada, which has been something that has been on the table for a long time but hasn't gone through. And you have strong opinions on that. What do you think?
And what we have to do as Canadians, particularly after the third anniversary of PS752, is making sure that an organization who is known to have shot out of the sky and killed 55 Canadians, 30 permanent residents, to make sure that they know that it is illegal to operate in this country, that it is illegal to organize, to plan, to raise money, and that will give us the tools to really make sure that our sanctions have teeth and that we can enforce them.
You happen to be in a riding that is very populated by the Iranian community. We hear money laundering issues here in this area. We also see that many people complain of the threats that they have been receiving from people related to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Do you hear anything of the people? Do they come to your office complaining about these issues?
Yeah, I think it's not only this riding. I think it's ridings around here. And they're not just people in my riding. They're longtime friends and business associates and neighbors. I grew up here. I went to high school here, it's not just Iranian Canadians. It's our family. There are people, and I'm one of the MPs that get calls from people in the community, sometimes in their car with a blurred out background, away from their homes, because of the fear of intimidation that they feel as Canadians who live here by a regime abroad. And if we're not taking that seriously, I think fundamentally we're not doing the job that a Canadian government should do to keep our people safe.
One of the reasons that many Iranians are in Canada these days is because of the fear they had in their own country. Do you think it's fair for them to flee from their own country and still don't find safety?
Yeah, we've said this loud and clear, and we'll continue to scream it from the rooftops, and we'll continue to rally with the community every Saturday and Sunday and every day in between when they're calling for a change of the regime. Because if you leave a country persecuted without having just an iota of human rights, democracy, the rule of law, to a country as amazing as Canada, where you can enjoy the fruits of this nation, do well, work hard, attain professional success, family success. We should never stand for somebody being afraid here, for somebody being afraid to go to their Starbucks or their gym or be out in their community because members of the regime or those close to it are dwelling in our community. That's something we take seriously as members of Parliament, and that's something that we have the power to ensure that enforcement is there rather than just words and sanctions.
Those people who give you a call and come to your office complaining about these threats, do they name people? Do they show you the people who they are afraid of here?
Yeah, of course. There's lots of conversations that happen too. And again, it's not just people from this riding. It's people from Richmond Hill all the way to North York, from parts of Toronto, and whatever the conversation is, at the crux of that is always a fear of living in freedom in Canada, because of the intimidation they feel from a foreign dictatorship, from the mullahs that are running Iran.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring this up, and we see that there are people that we know they have relations to the IRGC, to the Islamic Republic, and they are still here in Canada. And as far as I know, nothing serious is being done. It's just that the people are observing, the government is observing, but I haven't seen anybody expelled from Canada or detained. It's
one thing to have sanctions, and it's a very different thing to enforce those sanctions in a way and give our authorities, our police forces, the organizations in our country the tools and required laws to be able to point out, to not let people in, and to expel people where possible. And that's something that we'll continue calling on, and I think that's one of the things that will be much more clearly spelled out when the IRGC is listed as an illegal organization in Canada.
You know that people have to serve, like boys have to serve in Iran, and many of them are sent to IRGC. Yeah. Many of them are here in Canada. Sure. As I know, 15,000 people might be expelled if IRGC is listed as a terrorist organization, because these people have either are studying here in Canada or have a permanent resident status. If I know that the Conservative Party is pushing for that, but if that happens sometime later on, what is the solution for those people?
There's lots of people that are going to tell you, we can't do this, it's complicated, it's hard. It's not a question of we can't do this. We can figure out a way within the confines of the law. It's not an issue of not having the resources. It's about not having the political will to do this. And where we need the resources, where we need investigations into every one of these cases, if you had the political will to truly stand up to the regime, you will do that as a Canadian government. And we will do that, and we will work around ways to make sure that those who find refuge in Canada, those who want to build a life here, and those who have nothing to do with the regime are welcome to stay and be Canadians and be our neighbors and be our friends. And those who are a problem, those who are intimidating families, are the ones that are not welcome here.
Why do you think the government of Canada is not still going through with this?
Look, I think it's a lack of political will on all of these things. I sat through the three-year anniversary of Flight 752, and I understand that justice, the wheels of justice are turning very, very slowly, but they've at least started turning. And it's always been a lack of political will for us to call the IRGC what it is, the terrorist entity that it is, to call out the Iranian regime for what it is, a terrorist regime that kills and executes its own people. And I think the time is up, and I think, it's, again, a lack of political will and a lack of a government who wants to do anything beyond symbolism. This is a serious issue that requires a serious response, and we don't have a serious government.
You mentioned the executions. Have you sponsored anybody?
Well, I have sponsored, actually. We're speaking on a Friday afternoon, and you'll see that sponsorship, and I'm happy to share it with everyone. In fact, a number of members of our caucus have sponsored those, and I understand that it's tougher and tougher to get information from on the ground. It's our job to make sure that the world continues to watch what is happening. We're seeing a revolution that we've never seen. We're seeing the potential of the next 43 years look nothing like the last 43 years. And whatever we can do to help is we will be there. And whether it's, at rallies or at commemorations or with sponsorship or with actually putting in place the laws that we need to keep Canadians safe and send a message to the regime, we're going to do it. We're going to do every single thing.
On the same topic, I was talking to a member of the Liberal Party, and he suggested maybe reestablishing relations, diplomatic relations with the government of Iran would be a good idea to enforce some of the requirements that Canada has to ensure that the human rights violation will end or will be a little bit better than what it is right now. Many people say that this is a step back for the government of Canada.
I would say no, 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 no.